Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, David R. Wolf.
All right, folks, we are so privileged today to hear from so many great people. Our Vice Chief did such a fantastic job, and we are going to just keep it going and, dare I say, maybe even crank it up a notch with our next guest speaker. SEAC, Dave Isom, is a proven warrior for the last 35 plus years. The SEAC is a true joint warfighter, having served in Naval Special Warfare, a special operations leader, and before becoming the SEAC was our command senior enlisted leader out at US Indo-PACOM. I also know him very well just as a man and an individual. He's an amazing husband and father. He set such a great example for the Joint Force and the senior enlisted leaders that are out there in the COCOMs and all the service SELs. He's going to have some great stuff for us today, folks. Get on your feet, make some noise for our senior enlisted advisor to the chairman, Dave Isom.
All right, let me put my glasses on so I can see Dave. It's actually this December will be 39 years. So that's why you get this and you get some of these hearing aids. That's what happens, okay? Man, good afternoon, teammates. Let me look around this room and soak it all in. Joe Bass, great to see you. That awesome panel that we just had, how cool was that, huh? 3 of my favorite combatant command senior enlisted leaders, all Air Force. You know, the Air Force holds a special place in my heart for those that don't know this. And the last time I attended an event like this, I think, was when Joe Bass invited me out to Texas. Man, you guys know how to party. Woo! No, I think it's more than just the partying, and it's more than just the awesome people in this room. It is the total Air Force package and Space Force package that you guys deliver for our Joint Force every day. As a soft guy, having taken many trips back and forth to faraway places on C-17s, maybe thrown some big boats out of the back of some of them and then jumped out with them, looking overhead, thankfully seeing some close air support, some aircraft saving my skin at least once or twice. I really do have a special place in my heart for both Air Force and Space Force, not to mention ensuring that we had communications at the SATCOM level, ensuring that we had good GPS. You know, it was, it's a special relationship that me as a soft guy in particular that I've had with air and space. So, man, allies and partners are here. Air Force from Australia, thanks for being here. Ralph Clifton. And a lot of familiar faces from Hawaii here as well. So as you know, I was the Indo-PACOM senior enlisted leader before this, so it's awesome to see so many awesome and familiar faces. And it's really an honor to get to be here with you today. Let me start by thanking the Air Force Sergeants Association, the organizers of this really incredible event, and all the dedicated volunteers who made this event possible. Your tireless advocacy for airmen, guardians, and their families is nothing short of incredible. And you know, events like this don't just happen overnight, and they don't put themselves together. And so there's a bunch of people behind the scenes. I was just behind these curtains with a bunch of them, and they do amazing work to make sure that this happens. So how about a round of applause for all those behind the scenes? And I also want to extend my deepest gratitude for you, for all of you attending, and for your focus on what is a really important topic, and that is the importance of building capable and lethal warfighters. I also want to thank my good friend and awesome teammate, SimSAF Dave Wolf, and his wife, Danielle. They make an awesome team. Thanks for your continued steadfast leadership and your unwavering commitment, not just to the Air Force and the Space Force, but to our entire joint force. You guys, you make us all better leaders, so thank you. So as I look around this room, what I see is the very backbone of the greatest military force on the face of our planet. I see the technical experts, the frontline supervisors, the tactical innovators, and the strategic thinkers who make our air and space forces the absolute best in the world. And I say air and space because I don't see anybody else out there in a bright white uniform, unless there's a guy serving ice cream in the back there. So it's just me. The theme for this year's summit is exactly what we need to be talking about, and that is building lethal warfighters from the airfield to orbit. It's a bold idea, and it is an appropriate one. In today's complex and rapidly evolving threat environment, we don't have the luxury of resting on our past success. The battle space is changing like never before. You saw some of it during the Vice's speech earlier. The threats that we face are multidimensional, and they are all domain. And so our response must importantly be equally dynamic, and more importantly, our learning must continue to accelerate. And I want to be perfectly clear about one thing. We undoubtedly build the best jets, the best submarines, the biggest aircraft carriers, the most advanced satellites, the most sophisticated cyber architecture, but none of those platforms are lethal on their own. What makes our military successful is you. The critical strategic advantage of the United States military, it's not our equipment or our technology, it's our people. It's our enlisted force. You are the critical point of failure and the ultimate guarantor of success in warfighting. In the special operations world, we have these things called soft truths or principles. And soft truth number one, the one that's always at the forefront of our minds and most important, is that humans are more important than hardware. Our adversaries are trying to replicate what we have. They attempt to steal our blueprints, they're trying to copy our aircraft, and they can attempt to match our space capabilities. But they cannot copy the American non-commissioned officer. They cannot replicate the courage, the initiative, the critical thinking, the innovation, and the decentralized execution that defines our enlisted corps, and it defines how we operate. It is your ability to execute the 7 principles of mission command that make us unique on the globe. Competence, mutual trust, shared understanding, commander's intent, mission orders, discipline initiative, and risk acceptance. That is what makes us different. When the comms go down and when the plan falls apart, it is the American NCO on the flight line, the guardian at the console, who steps up, makes the call, and gets the mission done. That is our asymmetric advantage, and we must fiercely protect that. And we have to continue to develop it and evolve it for the future fight. As we talk about building these lethal warfighters, we have to also recognize that none of us fight alone. And that brings me to the absolute imperative of something the last panel talked about, and that is jointness. In 2026, there is no Army fight or Navy fight or space fight or Air Force fight. Modern warfare is inherently and undeniably joint. When we project power, we do it together. The airman who ensures air superiority enables the soldier on the ground. The guardian, providing precision navigation and timing, enables the sailors at sea and the Marines on the beach. As a special operations leader, I never once operated anywhere without someone from another branch of service, either on the ground, on the air, or at sea, supporting me and making it happen every day. They were always critical to the success of the mission, and I think John Storms, Jake Simmons, and Kenny Bruce would all attest to the fact that it is absolutely critical. They'll echo my sentiment that we are all one team. From under the sea to the airfield and into orbit, we are all connected to the broader joint force. But we still have work to do. There are still silos of division between our services, and there are old ways of thinking. We must do more. We must continue to break down those remaining silos. We must understand how our specific roles integrate into the larger joint scheme of maneuver. Jointness isn't just a buzzword for the Pentagon. It is a tactical reality that must be understood and embraced at every level. We all must understand how our piece of the puzzle fits into the Joint Commander's intent, because seamless integration across all domains will be the difference between victory and defeat. The chairman and I have been traveling the globe, talking to troops, evaluating our posture, and assessing our readiness. Out of those assessments, our priorities remain steadfast. We have 3 main priorities and then a 4th focus area that wraps around all those priorities. And so our first priority is to have a joint force that is properly armed. And being armed is about more than just carrying a weapon. It means having the right equipment, the right capabilities, the right capacity, the right tools, at the right cost, and in the right location when commanders need them. And we need to also arm our enlisted force, not just with hardware, but with the trust and authority to make decisions at the speed of relevance. So, armed. Second priority, a joint force that is fully integrated. I spoke about jointness, but integration goes even deeper. We must be fully integrated with our allies and partners. And when I first arrived, I saw my good buddy Ralph Clifton, and we were talking about how a few years ago we met on a desolate runway somewhere in the far corners of Australia, and how we talked about the importance of not just integration, but of interchangeability. Not just interoperability, but interchangeability, and we're getting there. And so I'm proud of the work that y'all are doing out there in the Pacific. We need to be fully integrated with our interagency, need to be fully integrated with industry and academia, and importantly, we need to get better at being fully integrated internally. Every branch of service, Guard, active duty, reserve, our civilians, all working seamlessly as one unified joint force. When we are fully integrated, we present multiple simultaneous dilemmas across all domains that our adversaries simply cannot solve for. And our third priority is ready. And this is where you come in. This is where our presence on the flight line, out at sea, walking the deck plates, wherever we are, ensuring that we're ready. Properly trained, properly exercised, properly rehearsed, and fully prepared for warfighting. And true readiness is multifaceted. It's physical, it's cognitive, it's psychological, it's spiritual, and it's about our families. And I will tell you, I was talking to SimSAF just earlier about the criticality of how the fitness and the cognitive are linked. If you want to be a high cognitive performer, you've got to continue to focus on your fitness. It is not 2 separate domains. It is the same thing. It is your mind and body connection. And so you've got to continue to drive home with yourselves that discipline and that reminder. And you've got to walk the walk and talk the talk for your young NCOs and for your young officers. They have to see you leading in that effort. You cannot be a lethal warfighter if you are distracted. And so it's critical that we take care of our families as well. We cannot focus on the mission from the airfield to orbit if our families are in a crisis at home. And this brings me to the foundation of everything the chairman and I prioritize. It's that 4th focus area that wraps around really everything that we do and around all those priorities, and that is taking care of our people. We ask you to do the near impossible, but your professionalism, your excellence, your tenacity, your grit, your innovation, your determination, it makes the impossible become possible. We ask you to carry the immense burden of defending our nation. And in return, it is our sacred obligation to take care of you and your families. And the principle of taking care of families, taking care of our people, that's not softness and that's not weak. It is actually a warfighting imperative that we all need to embrace. If an airman or a guardian is worried about their spouse's employment or child care, or they're struggling with substandard housing, or if they're battling unseen mental health challenges without support, if they're not ready, then their unit will not be ready, and the joint force will not be ready. Our readiness is dependent on taking care of ourselves, taking care of each other, and taking care of our families. So we're relentlessly focused on improving quality of life, ensuring access to quality medical care, child care, and supporting our military families who sacrifice so much right alongside us. We must build resilient teams where looking out for the person to your left and your right is just second nature. Engaged leadership at your level is where this all begins. It starts with knowing your people, getting face to face, getting kneecap to kneecap, checking on them in person, not just a text message, knowing them so well that you see their issues sometimes before they see them. As leaders, your mandate is clear. We have to demand excellence. We must hold the line on standards. And we must love our people enough to push them to be their very best. In closing, as you spend the rest of this summit discussing how to build lethal warfighters from airfield to orbit, remember the heavy responsibility that each of us bears. The Air Force and Space Force are counting on you. The Joint Force is counting on you, and our nation is counting on you. So continue to sharpen your edge, refine your skills, and perfect your craft. Continue to lead with the courage and integrity and with fierce dedication to the mission and to our people. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your sacrifice and your family's sacrifice that you make every day. And as I always say, I ask you to let's keep those that are deployed out in harm's way around the globe right now and their families, let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers. Let's always remember our Gold Star families, and let's never, never, never forget our fallen. May God bless you all, and may God bless America. Thank you. Are we going to do some, how about a Q&A? Do we have time to do some questions and answers? Where's the voice of God? Hello.
Sir, we'll have him step up to the mic.
There we go.
Hey, good afternoon, SEAC.
Send it.
Jeremiah Ross, the Command Chief for the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force. Tomorrow, we're getting ready to have some discussions about the people portfolios, right? What we do to take care of our airmen and guardians and how we navigate the processes when we receive executive orders and SecWar memos. I'm just curious if you could share your thoughts for a couple of minutes on the importance of the SecWar memos that can need to come down and prepare us to be ready for the next thing.
To make sure I heard you correctly, my thoughts on the SecWar memos, are we talking about the Quantico memos or time after that?
Roger, the Quantico memos and the continuous versions of SecWar memos that are coming down.
Yeah. Yeah, so hey, I appreciate the SecWar memos. They have been very clear and concise, and so I think we as leaders, as you grow into these positions of leadership, you find that there are a lot of gray areas and there is a lot of uncertainty. And so when leaders can take away uncertainty and be clear and concise in their guidance, that makes our jobs much easier. It lets us focus on what's most important. It helps remove distractions, and it keeps us focused, just like you are today, talking about how to build lethal warfighters from the airfield to orbit. And so the more distractions that we can move out of the way, the more concise and clear guidance that we can have from our political leaders, always remembering that we work for civilians. As they provide that clear and concise guidance, that makes our jobs a lot easier. And so it's a lesson learned, though, for each of us to think about. One, we're operating in a unique time. And we're operating in a world where there is a lot of gray area, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And so if that affects you at this level, imagine what it does for our youngest airmen and guardians. And so it's critical that we help remove some uncertainty in their lives. And so anytime you can do that, I encourage you to do that. Remove the uncertainty. I applaud our Marine Corps. I have Gunny as one of my ops planners and strategic advisors, and he's here with me today. And he would probably tell you the Marine Corps is very good at removing distractions from their lives and keeping them focused on the main thing. The Marine Corps does that very well. And so I applaud them for that, and I think we can learn from that. So I appreciate those memos. I appreciate the clear and concise guidance, because it certainly makes our job as leaders much easier. Thanks for the question. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, Sergeant Monotonas from JBER. Will there be more opportunities for joint PME up and down the board?
Sorry, what was the word after joint?
Just up and down the ranks.
Joint learning?
Joint PME.
PME?
Yes.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, there was a course called Gateway that was created when one of my closest friends and a former SEAC, CZ Colon Lopez, was in the job. Gateway was targeting E7 leaders, and it was centrally ran out of the National Capital Region. And so the throughput was very small there. So what we've done is we have opened that up to be run and executed out at the combatant commands. And so we've got some combatant command senior enlisted leaders here with us today who can talk about that with you if you have questions. I think there is an upcoming one. So for those that reside in the National Capital Region, I think Cybercom is going to be hosting one here in the near future in coordination with the Fourth Estates or those combat support agencies like DHA, DISCA, DITRA, and that'll be in the National Capital Region area. So that's Gateway targeting E7s, but we have been allowing E6s and E8s into those courses because it was previously not available. So we're trying to catch folks up. And that course is a little bit of a small glimpse of what we go through in Keystone, which is the nominative sort of leaders course, right? And then as you know, there is a JPME 1 and a JPME 2, both online. We are going through modernization of those two courses as well, with some help from some contracted assistants down at our J7 in Suffolk. And so those would be the four kind of mainstay courses that we have in joint PME. What I would like to do, and this reflects my experience at Keystone, where I showed up and I thought at the end of it, wow, that was really great. I wish I had had that much earlier in my career. So that inspired Gateway. I think pushing Keystone a little earlier and creating a fifth Apex level course that is focused on those going up to probably the 3 or 4 star level jobs would be helpful. And that would give us a full spectrum from very early in the career all the way to the end. Those are the things I can control and I can put my hands on as SEAC. What I can't control, but what I'm encouraging all the services to do is to weave in some joint PME where they can. And I understand the Air Force has to build the best airmen in the world, and they certainly do. But I do think that we sometimes underestimate how incredible our service members are and how much they can actually carry in their rucksacks. And so we could probably add a little bit of joint learning into some of our courses early on in those careers, and that way you get a taste of it from early on, as early as boot camp perhaps. I listened to a podcast from the former Australian SEAC, who's a close friend of mine, and he talked about this very topic in Australia, what he wanted to see, and I think he's onto something there. I think we could learn from that. So great question. Thank you for that.
Master Sergeant Miles, First Sergeant Adam McCord. I have 2 questions for you. I was actually at the JIOC under J2 and did the engagements. And I don't know if you remember me, but I made a comment to you about your team being bald so that way you would have the best hair in the office. Is that still the case at the Pentagon?
Gunny, where are you? Stand up. I'm not seeing him. Okay. So I recruit one of my team from Indo-PACOM, a Sergeant Crisolo. He was looking for a job. He happened to be bald. I had a place for him. So I brought him to the Pentagon. And then and I think my gunny probably just shaves his head, so he's aerodynamic, hydrodynamic, and he can try to outrun me. So it keeps him fast. So, but that's a personal choice. But we do have a few aerodynamic members, and I see a lot of them here in the crowd as well, which I appreciate the as a SEAL, you know, you got to be fast in the water and in the air and on the ground. So I appreciate that look.
Yeah. So my second question, I've noticed that as a first sergeant, when we go to the different panels, some of the airmen, to include NCOs, have never understood or even read the National Defense Strategy. Is there other documents that you would recommend to this audience, both here and virtual, for them to get their hands on to make sure that they understand? Because it was in the National Defense Strategy that Indo-PACOM, but now PACOM, is a priority for us to defend.
Yeah, great question. And so this, for those that have been to Keystone, you'll know that the beauty of that course is it walks you through learning our strategic documents, starting with the National Security Strategy, National Defense Strategy, National Military Strategy. So at a minimum, I mean, and most of those are have a unclassed version. And so I would encourage everyone, please read those. If you haven't read, you need to read those documents, okay? That's a great starting point, and it's a great question. Thank you. All right, all right, all right.
Sir, Master Sergeant Marsh, Air Force Global College. Mine is more of a story-based question. You're very decorated, so I'm sure you have a lot of them. I'd like to know, what in your career have you witnessed that has shown true American grit, determination from service members? How did it affect you?
Yeah, man, there's about 39 years of watching excellence around me every day that shaped how I thought about American grit and determination early on in my career all the way through today. And some of this is meeting families, you know, of our fallen. For those that don't know, this past week was the 15th anniversary of Extortion 17. That was a CH-47 shoot down in Afghanistan where we lost 30 heroes and a military working dog, and it's the largest loss of life for Naval Special Warfare and Special Operations Command during the Afghan War. Seeing those families, those kids, those spouses, the grit, the tenacity, and the courage that they provide, that awesome example of how they live and carry on every day. You know, every day is Memorial Day for them, and so it's always impressive to see. On an operational level, man, I witnessed heroes every day, heroes who were my idols. Some of them senior to me, some of them officers, some junior. Just incredible heroes. And for those, some of you know this already. You may have seen podcasts where this gets talked about a little bit. The Jessica Lynch rescue is a great example of true heroes. You know, our squadron went in, backed up by Rangers, had every branch of service participating in the largest effort by a joint force and a joint task force to rescue Americans. And Jessica Lynch held in a hospital. We were uncertain what we were walking into. Intel was reporting possible large massing of forces in the area, the Saddam Fedayeen working out of the hospital with a headquarters down in the basement. But all that to say that every single person that went in on that mission was willing to lay down their lives, to include the awesome TF-160 pilots that put snipers on the roof, landed little birds right in front of the door where they could have taken fire from inside the lobby, the Blackhawks that came in right there as well, all those who drove vehicles onto the target. Just incredible heroism by an incredible team. Every one of them a hero, and no different than what I've seen throughout our joint force.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question. Appreciate it.
SEAC Staff Sergeant Sonny Haqqani.
Good to see you again. How are you?
Doing great. Good to see you, SEAC. Forgive me for this slightly biased question. You spoke a lot about integration. I'm curious what your thoughts are, on what role you see artificial intelligence playing to synchronize us as a joint force, and then secondly, what is the goal that you have in the back of your head that lets you prioritize doing business differently? What makes you okay with changing how we operate? That is the thing that allows you to evolve. A lot of times, people they don't want to change things up or try things differently or take risk, even if there's something to gain. So, what is it that allows you to have this kind of bias towards doing business differently and better?
Yeah, thanks for that question. That's great. We could do an entire session, most of today, on just AI and the criticality of this. So AI is the train that left the station. And we, as the human race, we have to decide how quickly we choose to try to catch up and get on that train. There's no putting that genie back in the bottle. There's going to be no putting guardrails around it, as we heard talked about earlier, right? It's going to find ways out of its protected boxes and into our lives, like it or not. And so we have to make a conscious decision to evolve and to move much more rapidly than we currently are towards being AI literate and AI experts, so that we can coexist and that we can leverage and use AI to the maximum potential. And from a military perspective, I would say using AI to ensure that we remain victorious and that our nation endures, right? It's that important. And it's not just on the military side. If you think of those who can harness AI and use it in their industry. If another nation beats us to that, and they leverage AI to build its industry in a faster, better way than we can, imagine if Ford, GM, Chevy, if all those companies were surpassed in a rapid way and all went out of business. Imagine the tens of thousands of jobs that would be lost. The crunch to our economy would be massive, right? And so AI is really about everything in our lives, but keeping it focused on us as a military. We've got to get on that train. We've got to move faster immediately. Time now, time yesterday. And you asked what keeps me, I guess, sort of focused on this idea of evolution and makes me want to change, and because I'm probably the oldest guy in the room, so change is hard. I also, not everyone knows this, but I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, and so I get to watch them as they learn about AI, and so I've got to keep up with them every day, and that's a task in itself. And I'm talking like on the keyboard, out running around playing soccer, you name the thing that they want to do, I am not going to let them down. This old dog is going to evolve and be at the tip of the spear for the rest of my life, and that's what keeps me motivated to change and evolve. Yeah, thanks for the question.
Hey, sir. A1Z Rodriguez, Advanced Command Post. What's one lesson you learned during your time in special operations that you use every day and that we can use both with the uniform and without the uniform?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for that. I think it goes back to my statement earlier about soft truth number one, and that humans are more important than hardware. Over and over and over again, regardless of the situation, regardless of the mission, training, operational, wherever we were, it all boiled down to the great humans that I was surrounded by and the relationships. And so as you think about your role, so we're not officers and we're not commanders, and so we really don't have command authority, right? What we have is we have influence. We have the power of influence. And you can't exercise the power of influence if you don't have connections and relationships with the people around you. And so I would charge all of you, if you're not building a network of people and building those relationships around you, and then taking that circle and making it bigger, and then taking that circle and making it bigger, That is where your true power lies, is in your ability to influence others, okay? And it's not just in the Air Force, and it's not just in the enlisted ranks. That's influencing the officers above you, beside you, below you, in subordinate commands around the globe, okay? It's your civilian population. It spans all aspects of our military. Build those relationships, expand those rings out further and further, build those networks, and use that power of influence for good. Thanks for the question.
Good afternoon, sir. Staff Sergeant Joyer from Langley Air Force Base. My question is, as the first Navy SEAC appointed, how has your perspective been leveraged, and how things have been changing? How long do you project it to be for a Space Force member to take that role based on the background?
I see the next SEAC right there. He sounds like he wants the job. You know, I didn't really think about it from the perspective of being the first Navy guy as much as I thought about it, asking myself, how did I, when I was in a squadron running around as an operator, how did I ever let CZ become SEAC before me? Like, how did that happen? That guy worked for me. No. I think, one, I'm just honored to get to do the job and to be a part of this joint force that is so awesome. As I look out at this room full of awesome, awesome people, it's just a huge honor to be connected to all of you. I know I wear a Navy uniform, but honestly, my entire career has mostly been joint. SOF is inherently joint, and so I can't think of a single operation or event where I didn't have, you know, an Air Force PJ and CCT standing right next to me, a C-17 overhead, close air support, Army helicopters, you know, you name the service that we were always surrounded by. And so I don't necessarily think of myself as very Navy. It's easy for me to just detach from that a little bit and always think of myself as the joint guy in the room. And so I would encourage everyone to think about that a little bit, though, because the gentleman from the panel earlier, they talked about it, the importance of jointness, right? And so learn more about your fellow services, understand them, understand your role and your piece in that. And as far as space, I mean, hey, who knows? B9 or I know we've got, are you willing to come out of retirement there, Jake? I think it'll be soon, sooner rather than later. I mean, space will have a SEAC.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Good afternoon, SEAC. My name is Senior Master Sergeant Kaya Kent. I am the Commandant at Airman Leadership School on Joint Base Andrews. My question is, so as we continue to evolve enlisted professional military education for our enlisted airmen, of course, in the future fight, is there a skill or a mindset shift from the joint perspective that you think ALS isn't emphasizing enough?
Yeah, I mean, again, I understand every service is focused on building what they must build, but I do think we could do more. And this topic of AI, I mean, I think who has taken an actual legitimate course in AI prompting, prompt engineering, something, right? So not nearly enough hands went up right there, right? And that's not unique to the Air Force. I could go to a big room full of Army or Navy or anybody else, and you're going to see not enough hands going up. So I think, again, that train is way out ahead of us, and we've got to catch up to it because it's moving and it's not going to slow down. That's not going to change. So we need to really hone in on that a little bit. And then I think social mastery, something that, again, the Australian SEAC talks about in his podcast. He's really talking about EQ, right? He's talking about understanding how humans operate. And so we've been growing up in this detached society where babies are now born with a cell phone in their hand, and you don't cut the umbilical cord, you just unplug the kid and off he runs. Like we've got to get back to being a little more human and a little more connected. We've lost a little bit of that. And so those are two diametrically opposed topics that I just hit you with there, right? So the need to be more tech savvy, more AI, pulling you off in one direction, but at the same time, the need to go back to being more connected and more human. And so we've got to work on that and how we do that better. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Afternoon. Staff Sergeant Hubbard. I work up in Peterson Space Force Base. My question to you, sir, is that given the importance of joint assignments and learning in the joint environment, is there any plan for the enlisted force to start tracking those assignments similar to what they do on the officer side?
Yeah, great topic, and that is certainly a topic that has come up at our most senior enlisted leader level. We've talked about the potential use for identifiers, because as a Indo-PACOM senior enlisted leader, I would have loved to have been able to see folks out in the joint force who had done a joint assignment that I could then go find them and pull them into the headquarters because they would have had some understanding already of how we operate. I think each service tends to do things a little bit differently, and they have their own focus areas, but it's a topic we're talking about. In our most current NDA proposal, we did write in just a little bit of mention of joint enlisted PME. It's not been in there before, and as you know, our officers are mandated to do joint tours and to do joint learning. We're exempted from that, and I want to be cautious with this. I don't want to box us into a requirement that we will not appreciate at some point down the road. I want to make sure we maintain the flexibility that we currently have, and so I think it's an important topic that we just have to approach carefully to get the right mix of what we want, but I do want to get it written into law, at least a small mention, so that we can then leverage that to ensure we've got the right funding to take care of it. So great topic. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, SEAC. I am Staff Sergeant Lopez-Gary from JBSA Lagland, a current technical training instructor. One thing that got me curious as I kept hearing you talking is your special forces background. One of the things that I get in my career field material management when I receive students is the students being retrained from their original specialty they joined. Most of the time is they came from a special forces contract. They fail at some sort of the pipeline process, and sometimes their mindset and their spirit, when they get on day one, it feels defeated. From someone of your knowledge, sir, how could you advise a student that I may have in the future that just came from the pipeline, and how can I lift up their spirits that just because one chapter closed doesn't mean it's the end of the entire book?
Yeah, that's a great topic. You should write a book about this topic. That's awesome. Couple of things. One, I'll be cautious with the words I use because I'm not special forces. That is a Army-specific code and thing, right? So that's what our Green Berets are called. So for the rest of the overarching title would be Special Operations Forces. And I say that because I don't want to offend any of my good Green Beret brothers that might be listening. This is something that every service runs into, undoubtedly. I mean, BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, will start with somewhere between 250 and 350 students in a class, and they'll graduate 25 to 50 on a good day. There may have been some classes where they graduated 0. The challenge is many of those who don't graduate BUDS then are, they are sent out to the fleet, and they're not always real happy with their life circumstances, and they can be difficult, right? It becomes a behavioral problem, et cetera, et cetera. And so every service struggles, I think, a little bit with this problem. And I think this is where leadership matters. Again, it goes back to, face-to-face, kneecap to kneecap, and helping folks understand their true value, their purpose, and their why. And you know, for anybody in the room, at some point in your life, you either have already experienced this or you will experience it. And that is where you have to redefine yourself. We all grow through various phases in our life, and we often have to redefine ourselves and redefine our why. And so I think sitting with some of those who have experienced a failure, such as you're describing, when they experience that failure, they need a good mentor and a good leader who can help them still see purpose and redefine themselves and redefine their why. You know, Simon Sinek has a great book called Start With Why, and it gets after this very topic. And so I think that's where I would begin for anyone that I encounter would be, hey, let's really sit down and talk about what is your why. And then the other piece of this is for leaders in the room. You know, too often you have MOSs or AFSCs or rates in the Navy. You have folks that feel that they're very far away from the action, far away from the X, as we would call it, the place that I would land on in a helicopter and hopefully capture or kill a bad guy. Those that aren't going onto the X, sometimes they start to define their value by their proximity to that X. And so it's important for us as leaders to talk to those folks and make sure they understand that you shouldn't define your value by proximity to the X. Your value is your contribution of the thing that you're doing that makes our joint force so incredible. Because no target I ever went on, I never could have gotten there without all those other people that made that happen, right? All the folks in the aircraft, fire support, intel analysts, admin folks, every single person had a hand in getting us there. And so none of those missions on the X happen without everyone else there as part of that joint team. So sometimes you just got to help folks think about their why and understand what their true purpose could be. Yeah, thanks for the question.
I think that's all we have for questions this afternoon. SEAC Isom.
There's that voice.
Thank you for your time and leadership.
All right, thanks for the voice of God helping me out there. Most importantly, thank you to all of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for focusing on the important topics that you're going to focus on and talk about over the next few days. Thanks again, SimSAF and AFSA for having me here. It is really awesome to be here and to be a part of this joint team, and I look forward to the rest of the evening. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for your time in interactive nature today. This is it for this afternoon's agenda. Tomorrow, PT, 6 a.m., and the first event is at 0800. Have a great night.